Good day, everybody. I hope that you're all well, and I also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today, we'll be doing our grade 6 English lesson on subordinating conjunction. And before we start, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once you've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of English Language Arts, grade 6, and then scroll down up until we get to the chapter of subordinating conjunction. All right. So our chapter is subordinating conjunction. Our subject is English Language Art, grade 6. And then the lessons that we are going to be focusing on under the chapter of subordinating conjunction is to identify subordinating conjunctions. All right. All right. So when it comes to subordinating conjunctions, right? Subordinating conjunctions, it introduces the dependent clause within a sentence. So there's different types of sentences, right? We have also independent clauses, we have dependent clauses, right? And in this case, a subordinating conjunction introduces the dependent clause within a complex sentence, right? So we have different types of sentences: a complex sentence, simple sentence, right? And the dependent clause, it tells you about the other part of the sentence that cannot stand on its own. You're welcome, guys. I'm really happy to be back. All right. So a subordinating conjunction, right? It introduces the dependent clause. And remember, with a dependent clause cannot stand on its own, right? A dependent clause cannot stand on its own. And a subordinating conjunction, it introduces that dependent clause within a complex sentence. The dependent clause, right? It tells you about the other part of the sentence that cannot stand alone. And remember, we said with dependent clauses, right? Within a complex sentence, a dependent clause, it cannot stand on its own because a within a complex sentence you have an independent clause as well as an dependent clause, and the dependent clause needs that independent clause in order for the sentence to be completed. And if we look at a few common subordinating conjunction, right? So some of the common subordinating conjunctions are words like after, before, as, while, until, because, since, unless, although, as well as if. Those are subordinating conjunction. And remember, there's a difference between subordinating conjunction and coordinating conjunctions, right? So coordinating conjunctions, it is where we join the two independent clauses or sentences, right? And it is words like and, but, or, so. But our subordinating conjunctions, right? It basically introduces a dependent clause and it tells us about the other part of the sentence that cannot stand on its own. And these are the subordinating conjunctions, which is after, before, as, while, until, because, since, unless, although, and if. Those are our subordinating conjunctions. All right. And if we look at a few subordinating conjunctions, right? Are there other types of conjunctions apart from subordinating? E- The ones that, the basic ones that I know of is your coordinating conjunctions, right? And coordinating conjunction, it joins your two independent clauses. Remember, independent clauses, it's basically sentences that can stand on its own. So it joins it. So our coordinating conjunctions are words like and, but, or, so, yet, and so on. Then we have subordinating conjunctions, right? Which is this that we are talking about now. It joins, basically, it introduces the dependent clause in the complex sentence. Then we also have correlative conjunctions. So then we also have correlative. I'm not sure if I'm spelling the word correct. Correlative. Then we also have correlative conjunctions, right? And correlative conjunctions, it is where it basically combines like two phrases or two parts of a sentence that also shows that both of these phrases or clauses are in the, like basically important. So it basically joins or combines the two phrases or two parts of a sentence. And it basically shows both, it shows that both of these phrases or parts are of importance within a sentence. That is correlative conjunctions. That is the only ones that I know of so far, right? So correlative conjunctions, coordinating conjunction, and this one that we are busy with, which is subordinating conjunction. And if we look at these three sentences that we have over here, right? It says, I need to return this book before the library closes. And if we look at that sentence, what is the subordinating conjunction within that sentence that basically tells us about the other part of the sentence? You're welcome. You're welcome. I will find out if there's the fourth one, but for now, I only know the three, which is the correlative, coordinative, and the subordinating conjunction. All right, so what is our subordinating conjunction within the sentence? Here we have the common ones. It says it's after, before, as, while, until, because, since, unless, although, and if. I need to return this book before the library closes. What is our subordinating conjunction within this sentence? All right, and if we were to select or identify our subordinating conjunction within the sentence, then we would say before, because it says, I need to return this book, right? That says that is on its own. But now before the library closes. So before is our subordinating conjunction. The next one says, unless it's cloudy tonight, we will see the full moon. We need to identify our subordinating conjunction within the sentence. And if we were to identify our subordinating conjunction, and then we can say our subordinating conjunction is unless. So unless is our subordinating conjunction within that sentence. And the next one says, I was late this morning because I forgot to set my alarm. It says, I was late this morning because I forgot to set my alarm. We need to identify the subordinating conjunction within that sentence. So now the next one says, I was late this morning because I forgot to set my alarm. We need to select the subordinating conjunction. No problem. And if we were to identify the subordinating conjunction within the sentence, then yes, we will choose because, which is our subordinating conjunction. I was late this morning because I forgot to set my alarm. Right? So that is basically our three that is three examples of basically complex sentences and where we had to identify our subordinating conjunction within that sentences, which is before, unless, and because. All right, so now we're going to aplusstudents.ca and we're going to identify the subordinating conjunctions. All right, so once again, we said subordinating conjunctions, it introduces the dependent clause in a complex sentence. And remember, we said independent clauses, it is basically a dependent clause cannot stand on its own, right? It needs an independent sentence or independent clause in order for it to complete the complex sentence, right? So the dependent clause, it tells you about the other part of the sentence that cannot stand alone, right? And we said that some of our common subordinating conjunctions are words like after, before, as, while, until, because, since, unless, although, and if. That is our common subordinating conjunctions, right? And here we made mention that we see that the first sentence was, I need to return this book before the library closes. So before is our subordinating conjunction, but it basically, sorry, it basically tells us about the other part that cannot stand on its own, which is the library closes, right? Or before the library closes. And then, unless it's cloudy tonight, that is the other part that cannot stand on its own. And in the next sentence, because I forgot to set my alarm, cannot stand on its own. All right. So now, if we look at a few sentences before we go on to our test, right? If we look at a few sentences, it says you need to select the subordinating conjunction within the sentence. It says, although the poem doesn't rhyme, it has an interesting rhythm. Although the poem doesn't rhyme, it has an interesting rhythm. What is the subordinating conjunction within that sentence? And if we were to identify our subordinating conjunction within that sentence, then it will be although is a subordinating conjunction, and the other part that can stand on its own, although the poem doesn't rhyme. That is our subordinating conjunction, as well as it's basically our dependent clause, right? If we look at the next one, it says select the subordinating conjunction. It says until I try the dessert. Until I try the dessert, I can't finish reviewing the restaurant. And if we were to identify our coordinating conjunction or subordinating conjunction within that sentence, we would say, unless I try the dessert. So, unless is the subordinating conjunction that introduces our dependent clause or the independent part of the sentence that cannot stand on its own. All right. And if we look at the next one, all right, the next sentence says, did you leave the cafeteria after I did? We need to select the subordinating conjunction within that sentence. Did you leave the cafeteria after I did? And if we were to select the subordinating conjunction within that sentence, and then we would say the subordinating conjunction would be after I did. So after and then I did. All right. So now we're going to our test, right? We're going to do the test where we're going to identify subordinating conjunctions. We're going to identify subordinating conjunctions. All right. It says select the subordinating conjunction. And the option one says Jenny ended her talk early since her audience looked drowsy. Or is it option two, which is Jenny ended her talk early since her audience looked drowsy? So is it option one, since, or option two, ended? We need to choose our subordinating conjunction within that sentence. Since or ended. Since option one or ended option two. All right. And if we were to identify our subordinating conjunction, then yes, we would say since is our subordinating conjunction. So well done. Option one is correct. All right, if we look at the next one, the next one says, we should go to the museum since we have a season pass. Or option two, we should go to the museum since we have a season pass. So is it option one, which is since, or is it option two, which is go? So option one, which is since, or option two, which is go. We need to select our subordinating conjunction. All right. And if we were to choose our correct option, then yes, we will choose since as our subordinating conjunction. So we should go to the museum since we have a season pass. Well done. Option one is correct. All right, let's choose the next one. It says, while Elizabeth was out, someone left a package on her doorstep. So is it option one, which is while, or option two, which is someone? So while or someone. All right, and if we were to choose our subordinating conjunction, then we would choose while. All right, so option one is correct. All right, let's look at the next one. We need to select the subordinating conjunction. If we are lucky, we may glimpse a rare bird. So is it option one, which is if, or option two, which is we? All right. So if we were to select the correct subordinating conjunction, then yes, we will use the word or choose the word if. So option one, once again, is correct. It says Bruce was nervous, although there was no reason to worry. So Bruce was nervous, although there was no reason to worry. We need to select the correct subordinating conjunction. Is it option one, which is although, or option two, there? So option one, although, or option two, there. All right. And if we were to select, yes, if we were to select our correct subordinating conjunction, then yes, then we will say although, which is option one. So yes, option one, once again, is correct. All right. The next one says, I don't watch scary movies unless they are also a bit humorous. Humorous meaning a bit funny. So option one, which is unless, or option two, which is they. So unless option one or option two, which is they. Our subordinating conjunction. All right, so once again, it is option one, which is unless. All right, let's quickly do two more and then we're just going to go over what, once again, we're just going to go over what a subordinating conjunction is, a brief of what the lesson is. It says grass is green because it contains chlorophyll. So is it option one, which is because, or option two, which is contains? So option one, because, or option two, contains. I really don't know why it's option one all the time. Yes, and the correct option is option one again. So because is our coordinating conjunction. All right, let's do the last one. It says we need to select the subordinating conjunction before we draw any conclusions. We should collect more evidence. So is it before, or if it's, or is it should? Before or should? So it's before or should. I think we might as well just click option one without even thinking. But yeah, our subordinating conjunction within the sentence is before. So option one, once again for the eighth time, it is option one. All right. So if we quickly go back to our subordinating conjunction, remember we have different types of sentences, right? And one of our sentence being complex sentences, right? And with a complex sentence, we have a dependent clause which cannot stand on its own, and we have an independent clause which stands on its own, right? Like a simple sentence almost. So when it comes to subordinating conjunction, it introduces the dependent clause within the complex sentence. And that dependent clause, it tells us about that part that cannot stand on its own, right? It tells us about that part. And we use the words such as after, before, as, while, until, because, since, unless, although, or if, in order to basically introduce or to show that part that cannot stand on its own, right? So that is basically the end of our lesson on subordinating conjunctions, right? And remember, there are different types of conjunctions. Try not to confuse subordinating conjunction, coordinating conjunctions, or correlative conjunctions with one another. Subordinating conjunctions introduces the dependent clause. Coordinating conjunctions, it joins two sentences, right, by using and, but, or, so, yet. And then we also have correlative conjunctions, right? And that is for another day. All right, so that is the end of our lesson on subordinating conjunctions. Thank you very much, grade six, for joining the class, and it feels good to be back. And I really hope that you're going to have a good day further. So till next time, goodbye. Every answer. All right, have a good evening, guys. Goodbye.